Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I am reviewing A Betrayal in Winter. This is book 2 of The Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham, and there will be no spoilers in this review. I am holding, by the way, in my hand the omnibus edition, so I have both A Shadow in Summer book 1 and A Betrayal in Winter book 2 in one volume. So, A Betrayal in Winter takes place more than a decade after A Shadow in Summer. And it is almost, not quite, self-contained as a story. There are, of course, some narrative events and some characters that carry over into the second book from the first. But the most dynamic character in A Betrayal in Winter is a new character. Also, there are some great characters that return from book 1. But really, one of the most important things to say about this book is that it, like book 1, it features some outstanding character work. And these characters are full of conflict. And Daniel Abraham certainly understands, as a writer, that what makes a great character is conflict. So they are just fleshed out beautifully. The characters feel very real. And also, like a writer like Robin Hobb, it is the relationships between the characters that is the main interest and the heart of the story. I compared Daniel Abraham's writing to Robin Hobb's when I reviewed the first book, A Shadow in Summer, and I absolutely stand by that comparison, having read book 2. The character work is fantastic, the relationships between the characters. I love how Abraham can capture the ways in which a person can simultaneously love and hurt and hate another person. How we can comfort and hurt the people who are near us. How we have all that conflict within us. It's actually quite amazing. It's a little bit like how in the short story, The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin, the wife in the story who believes her husband is dead is at first sorrowful, but also is celebrating his demise in a sense because it means her freedom. And she thinks to herself, and yet she had loved him sometimes. And it's an interesting question. Can you love someone sometimes? Or can you love someone and hate someone? And it is quite something that what Daniel Abraham does in The Long Price Quartet so far, portraying people in these complex relationships who do simultaneously love and hate each other. They both need and loathe each other. So he's a master of portraying human relationships, and that's something that I really, really enjoy. Another thing that he's very good at is inserting the themes in a very subtle but effective manner. One of the chief themes in here being ambition. Ambition is a big theme in A Betrayal in Winter. And we're talking about ambition on the level of like Macbeth or Faustus or something like that. It's Faustian ambition. And what he portrays very effectively is the price of ambition. But like Macbeth and Faustus, what Abraham does is he does not give us a monster to hate and loathe. He gives us a very understandable character with motives that are, well, perhaps in some ways at least, laudable. And that the characters might have legitimate grievances for the way they're behaving. Yes, the character is kind of a monster, but a very understandable monster nevertheless, and a very human one, I guess you could say. So there are justifications for the ways that even the most villainous characters act in the book, and there are no stereotypes in Abraham's writing. He's more interested in fleshing out full and interesting human characters. So ambition is a very big part of A Betrayal in Winter. Also, there is the theme of tradition and social conformity and the price that such conformity exacts on human beings, on individuals. It is not quite as heavy a theme, tradition and conformity. It's not quite as heavily done as in, say, the short story The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. But it's a very important theme to the Long Price Quartet. It's there. It is perhaps not quite as prominent as ambition, but nevertheless, the price of tradition and social conformity is very important to the way this story pans out. So it's a truth that in society, very few people question the way things are. Very few people think outside the box. And so, because often those who do get into trouble. That is the truth. And those that dare to challenge the status quo become either monsters if they lose or heroes if they win. But it's a risky game, isn't it? So, it's very interesting how we can view a certain character who wants to challenge these social norms and at the same time feel that character might have gone a bit too far, maybe a lot too far in some cases. So very interesting work that Abraham does in that respect as well. And along with this comes themes of gender roles and social hierarchy, and we are dealing with what is very much a patriarchy society here. And so it has very detrimental effects on the characters, most of which do not question the nature of that society. They simply live with the pain that it inflicts on them. But along with these themes, you have love and you have friendship. And you have the idea of questioning how much can you know another person? Can you actually know another human being? Even a family member or a lover can become a stranger if certain events transpire. And if people allow the distance that begins with inches every day and then accumulates until one day you wake up and you don't recognize the person on the other side of the bed any longer. So Abraham deals with that theme very effectively as well. The idea of how people that we think we know intimately can sometimes feel like strangers. So the setting, another thing that I think that I love about this series so far is the world building. And this book takes us north. So the first book was set in the southern part of the city-states of the Kayem. And in A Betrayal in Winter, we head north, and specifically to the city of Machi. And it is quite an astounding setting. Machi with its towers that are a status symbol that is imposing and dominating, looming over the city. There are some of the touches that I really love that Abraham puts in here to make this feel like a real place. One of them is the doors on the second stories of all the homes, the upper levels of the homes, because it snows so much in the winter that you can't use the bottom level at all. So you need doors upstairs. It's a great little touch, and these doors, even in the warmer seasons, are opened for fresh air and so forth. So great thing. Another touch that he adds is the underground tunnels beneath Machi that people are forced to use in the winter time. So there's some just great world building, and even though most of the story doesn't take place in the winter, which makes me kind of wonder why it's called A Betrayal in Winter. I'm not sure if the seasonal titles here were all that necessary. It's kind of catchy, I suppose, because you have 4 seasons and 4 books, but most of the book doesn't happen in winter, so a little bit, we do get a glimpse of winter in there, so that's good, because it's quite an amazing setting, particularly in the winter. But yeah, just admire Abraham's world building tremendously here in this. And the magic, another aspect of the world building is the magic. Very effectively woven into the tale. It's a unique magic system, entirely unique. He has once again from the first book, there are the Andat and the poets who create or call them into being and control them against the will of the Andat. So it's really interesting also to compare and contrast the Andat in A Betrayal in Winter, who is stone made soft, to the Andat we met in A Shadow in Summer, which was seedless. So they are both different and similar. They are both abstract concepts that are personified, again, against their will by the poets. But these abstract concepts do not want to be captured. They do not want to be put into solid form. It is against their being. So it's a really cool thing that Abraham develops through this other Andat, Stone Made Soft. Wonderful character too, by the way. Just as in the first book, one of my favorite, most compelling characters was Seedless. In this book, I enjoyed the very different personality in some respects of Stone Made Soft, a much more blocky, big presence, as perhaps the name might suggest. But you also get an even greater sense of the price of the magic in this world, of this unique magical system. And there is a very heavy price to be paid that might not be obvious at first glance. Like the social hierarchy, the exploitation of the Andats really shows the price that the civilization of the Kayam exacts on his people, and not least the poets, who are, as you learn from the first book, are the younger sons, usually of the noble houses, who are forced into this occupation, this calling of being poets. To sum it up, A Betrayal in Winter was another big win for me. Daniel Abraham continues to impress, and I am extremely excited to continue reading in this series. Until next time.